Want to kiss a manatee? There's only one place where you can legally swim with, interact, and actually touch these majestic sea animals. And that's here, in these two cities on the west coast of Florida. It's only here that you can partake in a tour that gives you the chance to come face to face with manatees, the animals also known as sea cows or teddy bears of the ocean.
Every single one of them is different. You won't have the same interaction one day that you will the next day. It's sometimes very intimidating to have such a big animal be like, hey, I want to come explore you. What are you?
People come from all over to experience this underwater moment with such a docile and gentle giant. Not to mention, they're pretty cute.
They look cuddly.
Do you think they enjoy the human interaction?
Some do, because some will come to people. And the youngsters are very curious, and they will leave the parent and swim up to people.
Manatees are a common sight up and down the coasts of Florida, but can travel as far north as Virginia. Floridians typically find them in canals, springs, and rivers, which can be right in their backyards. But it's still illegal to interact with manatees unless you're on a tour here.
So this area of Florida is very unique because there was a history of manatee tours. So this is the only area where you're allowed to swim with them. Historically, I think we were sort of grandfathered in because that was the tourism here. And one thing the tour does is it promotes a respect for the animal. So there are those that would say tourism is bad, but swimming with a manatee gives people this ecstatic feeling, and there's so much wanting to protect the manatee after they have that experience.
And these animals need protecting because their biggest threats are boat strikes and human harassment. Florida law says that it is unlawful for any person to annoy, harass, or disturb any manatee. Anyone convicted of violating this law can get fined $500 and face up to 60 days in jail.
The biggest thing is don't interrupt them. Don't stop them from what they're doing naturally. Feeding or giving water is a big no-no because it teaches them that, okay, there's water by you, but what if you're not there? They need to keep their natural sense that I know where all these food sources are and locate their own food and drink.
A recent new threat has emerged for all marine life off the coasts of Florida, and that's the red tide. It's a harmful and toxic algae bloom that's responsible for thousands of dead animals washed ashore.
The red tide causes neurological problems, causing paralysis in the manatees. What this does is it prevents them from being able to breathe. When they have a hard time breathing, they go into respiratory distress. Without very prompt intervention, they can die very quickly.
So far, over 500 manatees have died from red tide in 2018. Luckily, this area of Florida wasn't directly affected by red tide, but the Homosassa Wildlife State Park is doing its part in the rescue efforts by welcoming manatees that are recovering from red tide poisoning.
If they're rescued in time, they just get to go into fresh water, and within several days, they get to feeling better.
Manatees have to come up for air every 3 to 5 minutes. So if you just so happen to be swimming above them, just remember this one rule.
You can't ride a manatee, but a manatee can give you a ride. Sometimes when you're floating along there and then all of a sudden they decide to graze up underneath you and you just want to stay still. Now they're going to take a breath. You just freeze and float and you're not riding the manatee is basically taking you for a ride. So let it happen.
This is incredible. You can't ask for anything better than this.